Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I'm going to be doing my January Part 2 wrap-up. Better late than never. I took some time off and then I did the unboxing videos and it just, oh man, it has been an adventure with filming for me. Everything I had that I had filmed got wiped. It's been bad. It's been so bad. On a better note, I found my box. I found the box with the books that were missing, so I am quite happy. So that is good. This is going to be pretty short compared to a lot of my wrap-ups. I'm gonna be honest, I think I'm missing some books, but I can't remember if I read them in February or January, so I'm gonna put them into the February wrap-up. Just because they fit there just as well as they fit here, and I can't remember. I've kind of lost track of time a little bit, so these are the ones that I remember finishing within January. So let's dive in. These are in order from least to most enjoyed, and I'm gonna just begin. So we have Junot Diaz's The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. I like this book. I don't love it. I feel as if the words that were in Spanish kind of made it difficult for me to read it because I couldn't understand some of the conversations that were had, and I would have to put down the book and then go look up what I had just read and then come back, making it a little more difficult for me to just immerse myself within it. I listened to this on Audible and I followed along in the book just because I thought that would help me to see the words and hear them properly spoken. It did to a point, but I still was left with the situation where I couldn't understand some of the context and I had to stop what I was doing and go and find out what it meant and then come back. I also really enjoyed the characters and I found it a really immensely immersive reading, but I also found that the language, the foul language, was off-putting. And I'm really not usually off-put by foul language. I swear quite frequently. But in this situation, I felt that there were some words that I felt uncomfortable with, and that left me feeling a little awkward. And so I was left feeling uncomfortable with the read and frustrated by the read and overwhelmed by the read. So those are my thoughts. The story is about a man who is overweight and he's a big nerd, science fiction, J.R.R. Tolkien, like, nerd kind of guy, and he wants nothing more than to fall in love, and he is just so not that type of guy to find love because of his looks. At least that's what he thinks. He's also very awkward and socially unaware, and the story progresses following him, and then it progresses following his sister, who is a very hard-headed, very smart and intelligent woman, who cares very deeply for her brother. So you follow her story, and then the last person whose story you follow, I mean, there's several people whose stories you follow. There's a lot of different perspectives, but the main ones, and the other one was his mother, where you find out about her life before she went to America and back in the Dominican, I believe. Yes. So I enjoyed it. I will probably keep it on my shelf. I just felt off-put and stressed out by this. Again, there was a language barrier. This is The Good People by Hannah Kent. In this book, there is a lot of you know, I'm really not sure what the language would be called. It was Irish, I guess, but I don't usually think of Irish as a separate language from English, but it seems as if it is. And there was some intense conversation within this book that would be using phrases that were phrases I couldn't understand, and the context kind of filled it in for me, but it wasn't easy, and it wasn't one that I could just go and translate as easily as the Spanish. So that kind of put me in a situation where I felt held at a distance and completely separate from the story, which was a disappointment. The story, it opens with a woman and her husband dying, and she's left alone with this baby who is crippled, and she then decides that she is going to try and hide this child from society because she doesn't want people judging her or her child. The child is her daughter's, but her daughter has passed away, and she believes that, and the town believes that there is some superstition surrounding the fact that these two people that she loves has died. And then she brings this young girl in to work for her, and the young girl takes very good care of this child who is crippled, and between the two of them, they end up deciding that they're going to take him to the witch doctor to try and see if the fays have replaced him with a changeling. It was a really beautiful story. It was really well adapted. I really enjoyed it for the most part. I love Hannah Kent as a writer, and I definitely will keep this on my shelf. I just felt completely held at a distance, and I think I'm going to try and listen to this on audio, just because I think that maybe that hearing the words will help. So I've downloaded it on audio for when I have time to reread it in that way. So there's The Good People. Shirley Jackson's Let Me Tell You, New Stories, Essays, and Other Writings. I love Shirley Jackson. Love Shirley Jackson. However, this collection left me feeling somewhat wanting. I enjoyed everything that I read. There were some stories that were super creepy and made me uncomfortable and, you know, brought out that Shirley Jackson charm. I loved them. Her essays were really interesting. She touches on things like being female and writing and the experience of being a mother and a wife, and they're interesting, but none of them really stuck with me. Nothing really held my attention to the point where it stayed with me. So I feel as if this is a somewhat forgettable collection, and I don't want it to be. So for me, that's really frustrating. There is a lot of short stories and essays in here, because each of the short stories is like maybe 5 or 10 pages. And this book comes in at 416 pages. It's a lot to try and process, and there's a lot to remember. And it didn't hold up for me as a collection. I can't win them all. Can't be excited about all the Shirley Jacksons. I enjoyed it, and I remember really liking it when I read it, but I don't remember much about the smaller details. So there's that. Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. I am on a Roxane Gay kick. I can't stop. Ever since I read Hunger last year, which was one of my favorite books of 2017, I have been obsessed with her work. This really made me believe and understand that feminism is, as an overall movement, one that needs to be accepting of mistakes and problems and help overcome them together as a group, rather than trying to individually give heroes and immerse yourself within these situations where you only believe that there is one perfect way to be a feminist and that there is not one perfect way to be a feminist. There's so many different so many different encompassing ways to be a feminist, and that's really important and really valuable. I felt that this book really brought me some really interesting insight, and I felt really inspired by it. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. The Irresistible Inheritance of Wilberforce by Paul Torday. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't love it as much as The Girl on the Landing, but the subject matter was very different for me, and so it wasn't as much of a harumph for me. It didn't hit all the nails on the head for me as far as topic goes. But this is fantastic. I loved it. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I really enjoyed it. This is the story of a man, and it's told backwards from when he is an alcoholic and he's causing trouble and he's making a lot of people uncomfortable and doing things that are not so smart, and then it works backwards to when he wasn't an alcoholic. And I thought that was a really interesting way to depict alcoholism, to show you that it's not the person's fault and the behavior is a response to the disease rather than a response to the person. And it was really well adapted, really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. Then I read another Shirley Jackson as a buddy read with Amanda Center. I will link her channel in the doobly-doo. This is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I adored this. This story is about, oh, what is her name? I want to call her Doreen, but I don't think that's it. Eleanor. Eleanor, not Doreen. This is the story of Eleanor, who is requested to come to Hill House with 3 other people and to experience Hill House and to see what it has to offer as a haunting. And she is unaware that that is what she's going to do, but she knows she's going to this house for the summer, and she's supposed to be having this fun time and experiencing something and just having a life. For the first time ever, she's supposed to be being separate from her family. And so she goes to Hill House without any real expectations, and things start to get weird and start to get creepy, and she experiences some darker things and some scarier moments, and she sees things and she hears things, and all of her comrades are hearing things and seeing things differently, but they are seeing and hearing things as well. And the experience of Hill House is all-encompassing and affecting everybody in the house, but it affects Eleanor more than any. So I really enjoyed this. It's a great haunted house story, and I think it is really interesting, and it's one that I will reread because there's so much to it that Shirley Jackson left in it, and so much interesting like layers and things to be picked apart, and I adored it. Then I have a set of 3. This is the Planetfall series. I adore this series. I was sent the 3rd book, Before Mars by Emma Newman, for review, and I was lucky enough to receive a copy of this from Ace. It goes on sale in April. I am super stoked about this. I will do a review of this book closer to the release date. But the other 2 were phenomenal, and Planetfall is the story of a community cult-like group that has gone to space to find God, and they have built a commune at the base of what they think is God's city, and they're trying to live their life according to the will of God and how they believe that the woman who led them there wants them to live their life. It is very science fiction, very interesting. They have some really interesting technology. It talks a lot about mental health and the experience of mental health and anxiety, and what that looks like and how that affects a person, and also the mental illness of hoarding, which is really interesting. I really enjoyed that aspect of the story as well. So there's that one. And then there is After Atlas by Emma Newman, which is the sequel to Planetfall, and it's back on Earth following one of the children who was left behind by this cult. And he is interviewing, and he is a detective, and he is investigating the death of a cult leader on Earth, and things are not as they seem, and it is very interesting. So those are the first two. The third one has to do with a mistrusting woman not trusting her psychiatrist. I really enjoyed it, but I will talk more about that when it's closer to release date. And then the final book, the one that I enjoyed the most out of all of them, was Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green. This one is a graphic novel, and it depicts an eating disorder, and it depicts the experience of sexual assault, and it depicts the appearance of change in the body and what that looks like, and the dangers of eating disorders, anorexia in particular, but it does also address binge eating. I really adored this book. I thought it was really well equipped to deal with what it was, and there's a note from the author in the beginning saying that she didn't see anything like this when she was in trouble, and so she wrote it for those who could be in trouble now. And I thought that was really beautiful, and I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. And if you have trouble with an eating disorder like I do, there are trigger warnings that you just should be aware of, and you may get triggered into a darker spiral, which is what happened with me, unfortunately, and my symptoms have worsened, but I do still love this book, and I think it's a really good conversation starter, and I think it's really healthy. It's just a lot to manage. So yeah, those are the books that I read in the second half of January. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button. I will talk to you in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video.